What's up guys, C93 here, and today we're talking about the crystal ball throwing, the wall shadow diving, the death from above flying Chernobog. Now Chernobog is my main hunter right now. I think he's a lot of fun to play with. He's got a lot of intricacies that a lot of people don't know about, and he's very underutilized. So we're going to go over all of that in the video today. So without further ado, Chernobog. First things first, we're going to go over his abilities. If you've played Chernobog, you know a little bit about his abilities, but we're going to go over them anyways. First things first, his passive, Heart of Cold. Every successful basic attack impales the enemy with a brittle crystal. Upon reaching 3 stacks of Heart of Cold, the enemy explodes for extra damage in an area around them. This damage does not trigger item effects. So what this is every basic attack you land puts a little crystal above their head. 1, 2, and on the 3rd shot, it blows up, dealing damage to that god and in a little bit of an area around them. Next up, we have his first ability, Crystallized Curses. Chernobog conjures a large crystal of curses and hurls it at the target location, dealing damage on landing. After several seconds, the crystalline curses explode, dealing damage again and rooting any enemies in the area. This crystal can be detonated early by firing at it with Vicious Barrage. Now what this is an area of effect move he has. You throw it out, it's a pretty decent sized area, and after about 3 seconds the crystal explodes. Now one thing to remember is it does damage on landing and on detonation. It's your #1 form of wave clear and should be leveled first. Next we have his second ability, Vicious Barrage. Chernobog fires an enlarged crystal shard that can pierce enemies and deals damage like a basic attack. This applies a single stack of Heart of Cold to all enemies it passes through and instantly detonates crystallized curses. After firing, Chernobog gains an increased attack speed for several seconds. So, like it says, it's a basic attack, it's not an ability. It won't trigger Heartseeker or Crusher or anything of the sort. However, it can crit, and it can also go through walls, which is a big factor when you start getting into combos and working around enemy barricades. Also, the attack speed buff it gives is pretty insane, 60% at max rank. This is excellent if you can land the combo and root the enemy god, and then unload a burst of damage right into him. Third, we have Into Darkness, his escape. Chernobog dashes forward, dealing damage and slowing any enemy he collides with for 2 seconds. If Chernobog comes in contact with a wall, he briefly enters it as a shadow, becoming untargetable and immune to damage for up to 3 seconds. Chernobog can leave the wall early by dashing out or just stepping out of the wall. If he remains in for the full duration, Chernobog will automatically dash out as his time expires. This is a phenomenal move, and I'll explain why in the next section in our tips and tricks section. Next we have his ultimate, Living Nightmare. During a brief channeling period, Chernobog summons shadows at the location of all enemies that last 8 seconds and apply a short stacking slow. Chernobog can select any of his shadow clones to fly towards. Once he reaches the location, he takes the place of his shadow, refreshing his cooldowns as well as temporarily obtaining damage mitigation and extra movement speed. Now this is a really good ultimate despite what people may think. A lot of people think that it's a weird hunter ultimate. It's not an escape. You have to dive into people. It's not good. You know what? It is good. You got to use it the right way. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more in the next section. Now, on to tips and tricks. We're going to go over all the little intricacies in his abilities while they're still fresh in your head before moving on to builds and combos. Number 1, Crystallized Curses. Now there's not a lot of stuff you can do with Crystallized Curses that's super intricate, but one thing to know is it does go through walls. So it goes through your mirror walls, Odin cages, anything of the sort you can throw it through. You can also throw his second ability, Vicious Barrage, through those walls as well. So if somebody's locked in a cage or behind a mirror wall trying to escape, you can throw the crystal through and then shoot the Vicious Barrage through as well, blowing up the crystal and rooting the enemy god. Also, you can use it to block pathways, because when you throw that crystal down, enemy gods know that they run the risk of going into it, trying to get through it in time before you blow it up or the 3-second detonation goes up. So it's really good for stopping gods from coming in a certain way or trying to escape a certain way. Next, we're going to talk about Into Darkness, his dash. Now it's a really good escape, just to dash into a wall then dash back out of a wall and you gain that double dash distance trying to escape enemy gods, but it can also save your life in a lot of situations that people don't use it for. For example, when Yamoja ults, those 2 big water walls that come up, you can dive into the wall and wait. And when that thing collapses, you don't take damage. You can also dive into Terror Crystals, and when she shoots through it to stun you, it doesn't stun you, it just pops you out. Odin cages, Cabrakan stones, Ymir walls, any kind of wall you can dive right into and sit in there. Another one I found out fairly recently was that when Ganesha pops that boxing ring ultimate, you can just dive into the pillar. And you sit in that pillar as a shadow, not taking damage for 3 seconds. It's the majority of that ult. And then when you pop out, you're ready to fight. Now, another big thing is when you're in the wall, you don't take damage and you're not affected by dots and you can't be targeted. That's huge. If you get tagged by a cuckoo tornado and you're about to take that 1200 damage that tornado does, you can just dive into the wall and ride out that dot damage. And when you pop back out, you're good to go. Also, if you have a Zeus you're playing against and he tags you with 3 of those lightning charges, you can time it right, get into the wall, and when he detonates, no damage. Same goes for if you're going against a Chiron and the Chiron puts that target on you. When that arrow comes flying over and you're in that wall, it hits you, no damage, you're safe. Another thing you can avoid with this is the Nuwa ult. If you see her go up and you dash into that wall, when the bomb comes down and hits you, it does no damage. So what I want you guys to take away from this is this move is very underutilized. You can do a lot of stuff with it and it can save your life in a lot of situations. Remember that any wall you can dash into. Anytime you're taking a dot, you can dash into the wall and you don't take that damage. You're not targetable while you're in that wall. Remember all these things when you're going against these gods that have the kill shot, that have the finishing move, that have big damage on a detonation. And know that you can just dive into the wall. If they hit that move while you're in the wall, you don't take any damage and you're safe. And then you can pop out whatever direction you want to go and take off. Lastly, we're going to talk about Living Nightmare, his ultimate, which a lot of people don't like because it's not really an escape. You know, you have to dive into fights. Now, that being said, when you go up, you do slow the enemy team. That's a very minor helpful thing to your teammates. You know, if someone's trying to get away and the enemy team gets slowed a little bit, that's big. But you know what? That's not the main reason you should ever use this move. One is you can gank other lanes very, very quickly, and you don't run the risk of being detected by a ward. If you're trying to walk over there and that guy's got a ward out, you don't see it, but he knows you're there. If you pop up and the next thing you know, you're diving across the map right into his lane, they don't have a lot of time to react. So it's really good if a teammate needs help immediately, because even the fastest gods can't cross the map that quickly. Even other gods with globals cannot cross the map that quickly. Apollo in his chariot can get over there. He's going to blow through a bunch of mana. Thor and Thanatos need to be close enough to make that dash. They can't do across the map. They need to be pretty close. So it's really good to help teammates on the fly. Also, what I like to use it for is if you're fighting an enemy god and then they're trying to run away and they get out of range, you know, they dash, you dash, you're still not close enough to hit them. You can just fly up, come right back down, and you've got a movement speed increase and all your cooldowns are reset. They're pretty much dead. Also, it's a global ward, which is nice. When you fly up there, you get to see where everybody is and your teammates get to see where everybody is. Now, it's not a main reason to ever use it, but it's a nice little feature. Another way I use it that I don't see a lot of other people using it is mid-fight. People forget that when you come back down from that ultimate, you have a 30% damage mitigation. That's really good. So if you're fighting somebody and another god pops in and you just pop that ultimate and go up, come right back down, you got a 30% damage mitigation, 30% movement speed, and all your cooldowns are reset. That can really turn the tables in a 2-on-1 fight. And I've used it plenty of times like that, and it has helped me get out if I have to, or win the fight. Another way you can use it is as an escape. Now, I know it's not really an escape because you have to fly to an enemy god, but if you have 4 people come out of the jungle and you pop up, you find that one guy that's by himself and you fly to him. Because when you land, you're going to have the movement speed and your cooldowns are reset. So a lot of times you can land and just dash and run and you're good. I'd rather run the risk of landing next to that one god and trying to escape him than trying to escape the 4 gods that came out of nowhere. Another good way to use it is as a tower defense. If you come back to life and they're pushing in on your tower, you can get back to it very quickly and hold them off for a little bit longer. Now, these last 2 ways to use it are my favorite. I think they're a lot of fun, and I think you can throw the enemy team off pretty dramatically with these. Now, number 1, a lot of people don't realize this, Nox can fly with you. So if Nox dives into you and then you fly up in the air, doesn't matter how long you're in the air for, even if she like pops out of it, she stays with you in the air. And then wherever you land, she comes with you and pops out right away when you hit the ground. And now it's Chernobog and Nox flying across the whole map. I don't know how many people play Nox, but when you do have her in a game with you, it's a lot of fun to just send that into a team fight and they think Chernobog's coming, but surprise, I brought Nox with me. And secondly, if the enemy team has a Titan that's pretty low and they have somebody playing defense, you can fly right to that person, right to that Titan, land with a 30% damage mitigation, and just unload and finish that Titan off. Also, if the enemy team has a god who disconnects, you can still fly to that god. So if the Titan's low, you can fly to that disconnected god. Nobody on the other team knows you're flying there because they don't know who it's flying to if it's not them. They just know that your ultimate is up in the air and they assume, oh, he went somewhere else. But you can dive all the way to that disconnected god and finish off the Titan. Now I know that's a lot to take in. He's got a lot of different ways you can use his dash and his ultimate, and it's kind of hectic, but I hope you remember some of them, and the next match you play as Chernobog, you use these and you apply it to your game because they work from early, mid, all the way to the end game. And if you utilize all of his kit to the maximum potential, he can be devastating. Next, we're going to talk about his builds. Now, Chernobog is a basic attack hunter through and through, so you have a couple different pathways you can take with him. 1, you can go crit. 2, lifesteal. 3, penetration. Now, I like to do a crit lifesteal hybrid build, and that's what we're going to go over today. So first things first, we're going to start off with Hunter's Blessing. It's kind of a given. It gives basic attack damage, MP5, and attack speed, all of which benefit Chernobog greatly. Now my second item you're going to start is Bloodforge. Now the first piece in Bloodforge is Spike Gauntlets. They cost 600 gold. You can get Hunter's Blessing and Spike Gauntlets. Now, here's where it gets a little confusing. I don't finish my second item until I finish my third item, which is Ninja Tabi. Ninja Tabi costs 1550 and is very easy to get. So I go out there with a little bit of lifesteal from the Spike Gauntlets, and I play until 1550, and then I recall home, buy the Ninja Tabi, and get back in the fight. And then I start building my second item up. Then I start working towards Bloodforge. Next, you're going to start getting into your crit items, and you're going to start with Rage. Rage is easily the best crit chance item in the game. At full stack, it gives you a 45% crit chance along with 25 power. 45% crit chance is insane from one item. So you want to get that, and you want to get that stacked as quick as possible. Next, we're going to get Executioner. Executioner has 30 physical power, 25% attack speed, but the passive is what really makes it so good. Basic attacks against an enemy reduce your target's physical protections by 12% for 3 seconds, stacking 3 times. So that means that the maximum stacks, it's removing 36% of the enemy god's physical protection. Really good against tanks, and your whole team benefits from it as well. Now for your last item, we're going to get Deathbringer. Deathbringer is another crit item that gives 40 physical power and 25% crit chance. That is going to bring your crit chance up to about 70%. That's pretty damn good to have. Also, the passive on Deathbringer increases the critical strike damage by 30%, so you're going to crit even harder than you were before. Now as the game goes on, you're going to be able to sell your starter item, your Hunter's Blessing, and what I would replace that with is Aussie. Aussie gives 20 physical power, 20% lifesteal, 25% attack speed, and 15 physical penetration. Again, the kicker on this item is its passive. If you drop below 35% health, you gain an additional 30% lifesteal for 5 seconds. Now with that item and with Bloodforge, you're going to have about 35% physical lifesteal. If you drop below 35% health, you gain an additional 30%, which is going to put you to about 65% lifesteal. Now that high of lifesteal combined with how hard Chernobog hits and how fast he can hit can really save your life. If you're fighting somebody and you're losing and that goes off, you start healing for a lot every time you hit the enemy god. If you're hitting for 500s or 400s on your crits, you're healing for 250 or so, 300. That's a ton of healing to get real quick. Now, if you want to go even further into the game to where you get movement speed potion and you sell your boots, what I would replace them with is Titan's Bane. Titan's Bane only gives 30 physical power, but its passive is very good against tankier gods. Your physical damage ignores 15% of the enemy god's physical protection. If the god has over 65 physical protection, this effect scales up to ignore a larger percentage of the protection. This caps at 40% physical penetration at 200 or more physical protection. So, in layman's terms, the more protection the god has against you, the more you're going to ignore. Which is really good, especially in the later games where other gods are replacing their starter items with more defensive. They're going to pass that 200 physical protection relatively easily, and once they do, this item gives you a 40% physical penetration. That is very good. It ignores 40% of their protection. That's crazy. That, along with Executioner, can do big damage on even the tankiest of gods. So there you have it. That is my lifesteal crit hybrid build. It does good damage against tanks, it does great damage against squishies, and it has a lot of survivability. If you have any questions or would recommend any changes, feel free to post it in the comment below and I will get back to you as quick as possible. Next, we're going to go on to his combos. This is going to be the shortest section because he doesn't have a lot of combos. He has 1, 2, maybe 3. So first things first, Crystallized Curses and Vicious Barrage. This is his 1 and his 2. So what you want to do is throw out your 1 and then immediately fire your 2 into the crystal. That way it'll do landing damage and detonation damage simultaneously. It'll also root any enemy god in the area. Now optimally you want to shoot through an enemy god into the crystal, but it doesn't always happen like that. I prioritize the root over hitting the god with my Vicious Barrage. Vicious Barrage is just a basic attack. It's a good one and it can go through anything, but it's just a basic attack. So if the enemy god is in the area to be rooted, I will shoot my Vicious Barrage into my crystal. That way they get the detonation damage. They're still getting damage from it and they're rooted. Plus you get your attack speed buff. So after you blow that crystal up and they are stuck in position, you can turn and unload on that god. Next is his dash. It's not really a combo as more of like a little finesse, I guess. And what you can do is if you're in a narrow corridor and you're face to face with a god, you can dive through that god and into the wall and then back out of the wall and through that god again. You'll do damage twice to the god, once going through him and once coming back from him, but it also helps because it'll spin the god around. You dive through, he turns around, while he's turning around you dive back out and back through him. Now he's got to turn around again and you have a little advantage by throwing them off their balance. His last combo I talked about a little bit in the tips and tricks section, so it's kind of more of a trick than it is a combo. But what you do is you throw out your Crystallized Curses, you do your Vicious Barrage combo, you root them, you do a little bit of damage, and then you hit your ultimate, you fly up, you come back down, you can do it all over again. So it's basically a cooldown reset, and you get the advantage of damage mitigation and movement speed. Alright, that's it guys, that is the video. That is all my tips, my tricks, my combos, my builds, and a little bit of an overview about Chernobog's abilities. I hope I didn't miss anything. If I did, leave it in the comments below, and if I do another Chernobog video in the future, I will be sure to include it. So I hope you guys learned something about Chernobog. If you did, slam that subscribe button. I'm going to be doing more videos on more gods, so feel free to comment with what god you think I should do next. Also, I stream on Twitch every week, Friday night, Saturday morning, and Monday morning at twitch.tv/C93, just like it's spelled here on my YouTube channel. So feel free to pop in, give me a follow over there, and let's play some games together. Alright guys, C93 out.